As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about so many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Today we're looking at the practice of learning. Throughout the Bible we see this recurrent theme of God praising those who search for godly wisdom. We see it in Solomon's encounter with God in the Old Testament, where God says that he will grant him whatever he asks, and Solomon chooses wisdom above all things. We see it throughout the book of Proverbs, where it says to seek out wisdom and to prize it greater than rubies. And then we have this moment with Jesus and Mary and Martha. And Mary chooses to sit at the feet of Jesus, taking up a place reserved solely for men, breaking all of the gender cultural rules of the day, not waiting and doing the preparations, but sitting there at the feet of Jesus as a disciple at the feet of a rabbi. And when she's scorned by her sister for this, Jesus powerfully defends her with these words, "It will not be taken from her." He fights for her right to learn from him. And then on the other side of the kitchen door we see Martha. Martha, who's opened up her home to Jesus, invited him to come in, but instead of being able to make the most of this opportunity, it says that she busies herself with everything she assumes that Jesus needs her to do for him. How often do we fall into that exact same trap, busying ourselves with all the practical things we feel are required of us, but forsaking the one thing that Jesus says is the most important: to sit at his feet, to be a disciple, to learn from him and to discover the way that he sees the world. What would it look like for us to take a lesson from Mary? What would it look like for us to stick L plates forever over our minds, our hearts and our hands? To resist the temptation to pretend to be an expert, to pretend that we have it all sorted out, when so often this leads us to putting Jesus into our own man-made understandings of who he is or how he acts. So often as Christians we find ourselves asking questions like, "God, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? Where can I serve?" What if the key question is, "Jesus, what are you wanting to teach me today? What should I be discovering about your kingdom today?" As I pray and sit at your feet, as I read the Bible and study scripture, as I surround myself with Christians in the community, what should I be learning? What do you want me to be discovering about who you are and how your kingdom acts? This kingdom that's so upside down, this kingdom where the wise get confused but children seem to understand, this kingdom that we gain by losing, we become high by going low, where faith sees the impossible and strength is found in weakness. Paul describes this renewed perspective as the transformed mind, a mind that knows the King and comprehends the kingdom, that sees heaven's answers to the earth's problems. And he says that anyone who possesses this mind can be used by God to go out into all the world and see heaven's answers come into every aspect of society. I heard a saying once that always challenged me to be a disciple rather than a rabbi, a learner rather than an expert. It said, your first thought is what you've been conditioned to think. Your second thought defines who you are. It's so true. And today, what would it look like to move from your first thought to your second thought? What would it look like not to live in your first instincts, but to move towards a sanctified second thought? What would it look like to ask for heaven's perspective on all the different things that you encounter today? Throughout this series of Lent, we have been drawing inspiration from the Celtic saints, men and women who gave their lives to pursuing and sitting at the feet of Jesus. They were so committed to learning and received such wisdom and understanding that they transformed everything from agriculture to education to industry. In fact, they were so known for their wisdom that even kings and queens would seek out their counsel. Suddenly, men and women who had removed themselves away from the world were being sought by the world for their wisdom, and they were affecting the destiny and outcome of entire nations because they pursued Jesus. They sat at his feet in prayer. They learnt together as a community, and they gave themselves to understanding God's kingdom through his teaching in the Bible. There was a Welsh saint known as Saint David, and it is said that at his death, his peers mourned him as a brother, younger men mourned him as a father, but kings mourned him as a judge. To kings, he was a decision maker. He was the person of wise counsel for the entire nation. As you pray the prayer of Examen tonight, think back over your day. And why not ask God what heaven's perspective might look like on some of the situations that you faced? What would heaven's answer be to that problem that you have at work? What would heaven's answer be to that friend who's facing that difficult struggle? What would heaven's answer be to that decision you desperately need to make? And why not make the commitment to always being a learner and resist the temptation to become an expert? As we continue to seek Jesus and sit at his feet, he's constantly revealing more of his kingdom to us. Things that maybe only our unique combination of skills, perspective and experience can understand and can fathom of his endless manifold wisdom. This week, let's make a commitment to being a disciple. Let's make a commitment to being a learner.